Hey everyone, so I hope you guys have some hammers because we're going to be talking about nails. Yes, this chapter is going to be chapter 9, which is nail structure and growth in the My Lady book. So one of the important things about nails is that in order to know the nail disorders and diseases, which are also another pretty gross chapter, you need to know how nails are structured and the function of them. You also will be able to understand that the nails actually have a kind of anatomy, even though we just kind of look at it and we see, oh, like this is our nail, and you will even learn terminology because when we hear hangnail, one of the things that I always thought a hangnail was when you get a nail here and you rip it, which by the way, you guys probably think I'm weird, but I always think it's so satisfying when you have like a hangnail and you get to peel it here or your toenail. It's like one of the things that I always liked. I know it sounds kind of weird, but nonetheless, that's actually not a hangnail. We're going to learn about that in a little bit. We're also going to know that we're going to be able to answer if the cuticle is living or dead, and whether the nail plate and nail bed are located, where the nail bed and nail plate are located in the natural nail. So that's why it's important to read the little intro in the beginning. It kind of introduces you to what nails are. So the natural nail, which is also called the onyx, not the Pokemon onyx, it's actually... Okay, sorry about that. My camera was blinking and I was looking at it. I have to invest in a better camera battery. I think mine is completely at the end of its line. So I was starting the whole lecture out talking about the natural nail plate, which is also known as the onyx. And like I said before, it's not this awesome Pokemon onyx. It's actually the hard protective plate. And what you find with the nail, and this is what makes the nail so interesting, is that when we're talking about hair, skin, and nails, they all have one thing in common, and that's the fact that they're all composed of keratin. So keratin is the hard protein that makes our hair strong, our nails very hard, and make our skin have structure. Without this protein, we'd be one giant mass of just globby, glooky, gross, almost like an amoeba. So keratin gives us structure, and we need it. And you want to know that the keratin in the natural nails is going to be the hardest because our nails are strong. They don't bend like our hair does. We can't color our nails like we color our hair. That's why I use nail polish. And our skin is usually the thinnest because we have some of the stuff that we put on our hair, it's going to be too strong for our skin. And likewise, some of the products that we use for our nails are going to be way too strong to put on our hair. And that's one thing to keep in mind, is that our nails are the strongest, keratin on our hair is the second strongest, and then the least strongest is our skin. So you also want to know that the natural nail is located at the end of the finger or toe. It's going to be an appendage of the skin that is part of our integumentary system. And the function of the nail plate is to protect the tips of the fingers and the toes and their appearance. The appearance of the nail can also reflect disease because, like it says in the book, our skin, our hair, and our nails are a reflection of how healthy our insides are. And if our insides aren't healthy, neither will our nails be. So take, for example, see if I can give you guys a good example. If someone is seriously anemic or they have really low blood oxygen, the nail might have a purple color, and that's usually a serious sign that something's really wrong. Likewise, if someone is very deficient in either vitamin E or essential fat, what's going to happen is the hair's going to fall out and become very brittle, the skin's going to flake up and get very dry, and the nail will get dry and brittle and break off. That's also a sign of health issues. So in order to understand what unhealthy nails are, we've got to understand what does a healthy nail look like. So a healthy nail is going to be firm but flexible. The surface is shiny and smooth and unspotted with no wavy ridges, pits, or splits. A healthy nail is also whitish and translucent in appearance with pinkish color of the nail bed showing through. In some races, the nail bed may have more yellow tones. The water content of the nail varies according to the relative humidity of the surrounding environment. In a humid environment, nails contain more water. So it's like one of those things that I think our body weight is also affected by this too. If the area is more humid, the nail is going to suck in more water. Kind of like that whole idea of osmosis and diffusion. You also want to know that a healthy nail may look dry and hard but the water content is actually going to be pretty broad, between 15 and 25%. That may not sound like a lot, but by scientific terms it is, because the 25% may be a little bit more flexible than the 15%. The water content directly affects the nail's flexibility. The lower the water content, the more rigid the nail becomes. Coating the plate with an oil-based nail conditioner or nail polish improves the flexibility by reducing water loss. These products also prevent excessive water absorption. By doing that, you're going to help to create that homeostasis, because the oil is going to act as a barrier, and with the way oil is, it's hydrophobic, so it's going to repel water from entering, but it's also going to seal in the water that's in the nail, and that will make you have ideal flexibility. And that's always a personal choice. Some people prefer nail products, others prefer to go all natural. I'll be honest, when it came to nail care, I really wasn't into it. That was the one area in cosmetology next to barbering that I was like, eh. And on a funnier note, when you're learning nail anatomy, it's always so interesting, because I always thought a hangnail was the piece right here, but I also learned that a hangnail can be torn cuticle. I didn't even know what a cuticle was either. I always thought a cuticle was underneath the nail. I learned that was the eponychium. Can't even speak today, guys. As you can tell, I've gotten no rest. But the eponychium, that's going to be a part we're going to talk about later, and it's actually something that I learned about my own personal anatomy, that my eponychium is a little bit larger, because when I was a kid, getting my nails cut always hurt, and what I had to do was cut my nails and leave a fine line, and then I would go in there and file, so it would be easier to get low, while at the same time, I didn't have to worry about going in deep, because I used to hate that feeling. That is one of the most painful experiences ever, by the way, is when you cut too deep. It just, I'm shaking right now. There's even a commercial on TV where they have a device for dogs where they cut the dog's nails, and I forgot what it was, but it was showing the animation of using a regular clipper, and the dog yelped. It was a cartoon. I was like, oh my god, I can't watch this. So make sure you read that the Did You Know? This was actually really interesting when it says that nail plates are made of dead skin cells, so they don't require oxygen. In contrast, your nail beds are live cells, so they do need oxygen, vitamins, and minerals. And that's the part that we see. So if you look at our nail, the pink that we see is our nail bed. If our nail beds are not healthy, they're going to be purple in color. Read the FYI box, because that's really interesting. It talks about the products, because some of the professional nail products can get confusing with how they're marketed, how they're labeled. So it tells you to look at the products marketed as nail cuticle moisturizer, softeners, or conditioners. The cuticle is dead skin on the nail. So, that doesn't make any sense. Nail cuticle moisturizers, softeners, or conditioners are designed to actually treat the eponychium, sidewalls, and hyponychium, not the cuticle. And that's where it always gets interesting, is that a lot of these products are not using science to market. They're just using traditional layman's terms that we're used to, as a bad habit, we're kind of used to using, and I'm guilty of this too myself. Cuticle removers, here was what's really interesting. They're properly named. They remove the dead cuticle, and these products are actually either really acidic or really alkaline. Some of the products vary with how they're marketed, and they quickly dissolve soft tissue when carefully applied to the nail plate, and they speed the removal of the stubborn cuticle tissue. Now, my cuticle actually grows over my nail, and that's one thing I learned about myself, is that the best I could do is kind of push it back, because to try to cut it would either be painful or risky, because mine are directly on my nail plate and they go high up. Also know that the nail bed itself does not have sudoriferous sweat glands, so the nail cannot perspire. It is skin that's around the nail plate that perspires, which is usually the sidewalls. So if you're ever sweating, it's not your nail bed that's sweating, or the nail plate, it's the skin around it. So now for some quick nail anatomy. The nail itself does have anatomy. Make sure you look at the nail chart right here. It looks kind of gross, especially when they colored it red, and I'm like, ooh, looks like they're cutting it open. I cannot watch nail surgery. That's the one thing that I will be on the floor passed out. Anything with nails or toenails or fingernails coming off, I'm just like, oh boy. So make sure you read that. The nail plate, we're going to talk about the general anatomy. This is the part that we see, and this is the part that we're cutting. The nail plate is not living. It's made of dead keratin skin cells, and that's why it does not hurt to cut your nail. If your nail plate was living, if you cut it, it would hurt, and that's why it doesn't, because our nail plate is not living. Your nail plate is defined as your hardened keratin plate that sits on and covers the nail bed. It is the most visible and functional part of the nail unit. The nail plate is relatively porous and will allow water to pass through it, much more easy than through normal skin of equal thickness. As it grows, the nail plate slowly slides across the nail bed. The nail plate is formed by the matrix cells. The sole job of the matrix cells is to create the nail plate. The nail plate may appear to be one solid piece, but it is actually constructed of about 100 layers of nail cells. The free edge is the part of the nail plate that extends over the tip of the finger and toe. So you want to know that the free edge is the part that we're cutting. This is the part that's growing out. You want to also remember that the, that the nail plate is formed by the matrix cells. So the matrix cells are living, but they're going to help to make our nail plate. So they start here and they grow out. So you want to know that with the matrix cells, they're going to be creating nail plate cells. And as they create the cells, the nail is going to grow, and they help to make our nails thick. So we have 100 layers roughly of nail cells. If our cells are too little, it's an issue. If the layers are too thick, that's an issue because our nails get really thick and gross. And some fungi actually play a role in that, in the thickening or weakening of the nail. So the nail bed, on the other hand, this nail bed is the portion of skin that is living and it supports the nail plate, and it grows towards the free edge. Because it is richly supplied with blood vessels, the nail bed has a pinkish appearance from the lanula to the area just before the free edge of the nail. The nail bed contains many nerves and is attached to the nail plate by a thin layer of tissue called the bed epithelium. The bed epithelium helps guide the nail plate along the nail bed as it grows. So our lanula, and it's actually really interesting, this is the white piece that we see all the way at the bottom of our nail. That's where the lanula lies. Look at the cross section, that gives you a better appreciation of the snail anatomy. The matrix, this is really interesting because the matrix is going to be the area where the nail plate cells are formed. This area is composed of matrix cells that produce the nail plate cells. The matrix contains nerves, lymph, and blood vessels to nourish the matrix cells. As long as it is nourished and healthy, the matrix will continue to create new plate cells. In certain times, such as medication like chemotherapy or heavy-duty long-term antibiotics, this can actually impact our matrix, and what's going to happen is the cells will not be as healthier, so our nails become weaker and brittle, or they may even shed and fall off. Other disease can also infect this, such as syphilis, causing a whole shedding of the nail. So the matrix, we're actually not going to see this with the visible eye. It's actually right below our lanula. It does say the visible part of the matrix that extends from underneath the living cells called the lanula, so that is that. It is the whitish half-moon shape at the base of the nail. The whitish color is caused by the reflection of light off the surface of the matrix. The lighter color of the lanula shows the true color of the matrix. Every nail has a lanula, but some lanulas are short and remain hidden under the eponychium. Growth appearance of nails can be affected if an individual is in poor health. Nail disorder or disease is present if there has been an injury to the matrix. So the cuticle, the nail cuticle is a dead colorless tissue attached to the nail plate. The cuticle comes from the underside of the skin that lies above the natural nail plate. The tissue is incredibly sticky and difficult to remove from the nail plate. The job is to seal the space between the natural nail plate and living skin. This prevents entry of foreign material and microorganisms and helps to avoid injury and infection. And this is where it becomes a personal choice when you decide to remove the cuticle, because the cuticle does have a structure and a function, and it's really an idea of, well, should we really be removing this? Because it is a protective seal, and it's one way that we keep our bodies healthy, because the outside world with all the germs and microorganisms, it's going to seal that. So when you remove that, you might make your nail a little bit more susceptible. And there's also more of a risk of a disease, because if you don't have the protective cuticle or you're moved too deep, you can cause an entry point for pathogens. So our eponychium is a living skin at the base of the natural nail plate that covers the matrix area. The eponychium is often confused with the nail cuticle. They are not the same. The cuticle is dead tissue that adheres to the nail plate. The eponychium is living tissue that grows up to the nail plate. The cuticle comes from the underside of this area, where it completely detaches from the eponychium and strongly attaches to the new growth of the nail plate. It pulls free to form a seal between the natural nail plate and the eponychium. Cosmetologists are prohibited from cutting the epinecium even when the client requests it during the service. This is because it's also a safety risk, and the epinecium causes a lot of pain when you cut it. If your epinecium are a little bit longer, this is going to be your client like me who, when they tell you, oh, please be careful cutting or just file, because my epinecium up top is a little too high up. And what happens when you cut, you can either cut too deep and that can cause an infection, or it really hurts. That's the living piece of nail. Oh, shoot. Guys, and this is so... I also wanted to mention too, hyponecium. That's another thing that I have a long one of. So my epinecium is long, but the hyponecium, that's the plate that's up top. I can't even think today. That's the area that also hurts. So if your client has nails like mine and they say, oh, I'll cut them at home or just to file carefully, if their hyponecium is abnormally long and you cut it, that's where it is also very dangerous and very painful. So your hyponecium is a slightly thicker layer of skin that lies between the fingertip and the free edge of the natural nail plate. It forms a protective barrier that prevents microorganisms from invading and infecting the nail bed. Hyponecium also really hurts because it is living, and if you cut either the epinecium or the hyponecium, you're going to be feeling it. So read the FYI here because this answers all your questions to knowing whether you're dealing with the cuticle or the epinecium. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, the tissue is called the epinecium. And the second part, and then yes to the first one, it is going to be the cuticle. So the cuticle is the non-living tissue. It's going to be very thin, colorless, but easily visible under close inspection. The epinecium is the part that grows up to the base of the natural nail plate. It's the part of the skin that covers nail matrix and the lunula, and if you cut too deeply, it will bleed. Now, cosmetologists are permitted to gently push back the epinecium, but are prohibited from cutting or trimming any part of the epinecium since it is living skin. Cutting living skin is outside the scope of cosmetology and is not allowed under any circumstances or conditions. Some clients like me may have a very long epinecium and a hyponecium. Some may have a long hyponecium. And the way to tell the difference is if you notice that there is a longer than usual cuticle on the nail, that's usually the epinecium you're dealing with. That might become an issue when trying to cut. And then if they also tell you that their nails are hard to cut, that's going to be a hyponecium issue. And I have both issues. Everyone's very different. Some have one or the other. Some have both. So you also want to know that specialized ligaments, a ligament is a tough band of fibrous tissue that connects bones or holds an organ in place. Specialized ligaments attach the nail bed and matrix bed to the underlying bone. These ligaments are located at the base of the matrix around the wedges of the nail bed. And this is why if a finger injury is so severe, sometimes the nail is permanently affected and it won't grow correctly. You also want to know that nail folds are folds of normal skin that surround the nail plate that form the nail grooves, which are slits or furrows on the sidewall. The sidewall is also known as a lateral nail fold. This is the fold of skin overlapping the side of the nail. Sometimes looking at your own fingernail, you can actually look at this anatomy thing and then you can draw it out. I always give out a coloring sheet so you guys can color it and get the anatomy down and kind of like learn. I also try to find some matching games online that you can kind of put the anatomy on there. Also make sure you do the puzzles online at the Cengage. The Cengage is incredibly helpful for this part because it is kind of a dry chapter, but that's why I'm doing it all in one because it's really not too much information at once. So look at the various shapes of the nails right here. This is what I always think is so interesting. Nails come in so many shapes such as concave, convex, square, angular, narrow, fan, trapezoid, olive, date, acorn, flat or arched, circumflexed, arched, tubular, or roofed. So you also want to know that normal healthy nails can grow in a variety of shapes depending on the shape of the matrix. The length, width, or curvature of the matrix determines the thickness, width, and curvature of the nail plate. For example, a longer matrix produces a thicker nail plate, and a highly curved matrix creates a highly curved free edge. No product or procedure can make the nail plate grow thicker because a nail plate would require a larger matrix. Toenails are also thicker and harder than fingernails because the toenail matrix is longer than the fingernail matrix. You also want to know that nutrition, exercise, and a person's general health affects the skin, and the same factors also affect the growth of the nail as well. A normal nail will also grow forward from the matrix and extend over the tip of the finger. So sometimes, someone may have a slightly abnormal nail, and that's just their anatomy, and you can't change their anatomy per se. There are certain shapes of nails you can create using your creative mind, but within the legal scope of cosmetology, you're not going to be able to change it. So what I'm going to do here is, I know I was going to do this all in one, but I have more to talk about, so I don't want to go over too much because I know it's getting to that point where we're all kind of getting bored. Actually, I'm going to go through this because it isn't going to be that bad. So, read the Did You Know box, and this is going to be interesting because typing on a keyboard or lightly touching natural nails on a piano key will stimulate the nail, make them grow. And this is where it comes interesting because nothing can thicken your nail, but if you want to make your nails grow, there are proven ways to do that. Just typing or doing little exercises where you tap your nails, that's going to stimulate your nails to grow better. You also want to know that the average rate of nail growth in the normal adult is about 1/10 of an inch per month, but many factors affect this growth rate. Age, for example, affects nail growth. Compared with nails of an average adult, children's nails grow more rapidly and elderly adults' nails grow more slowly. Seasons also affect nail growth rate. They grow faster in the summer than they do in the winter. And pregnancy will also affect nail growth because of hormonal changes in the body. Nail growth increases dramatically during the last trimester of pregnancy and decreases quickly after delivery, returning to normal as the hormone stabilizes. In spite of popular myth, nail growth rates accelerate during pregnancy whether or not a woman takes prenatal vitamins. A nail's position on the body affects growth rate. Nail growth rate is fastest on the nail of the middle finger and slowest on the thumb, and toenails grow more slowly than fingernails. That's why it takes longer for a toenail to grow. If you ever cracked a toenail, it's going to take longer for that injury to heal before it looks normal, as opposed to a fingernail, which grows a lot quicker. So I do want to add a point with pregnancy because pregnancy is so interesting. There are cases where after pregnancy the nail is completely changed, as well as the skin and the hair. I knew someone, and she was a client, and she explained it that this baby had sucked the life out of her. She had given birth, and she used to have the thickest, most longest dark black hair, great skin, very shiny, great thick long nails. After birth, her hair fell out so severely that it became thin and limp, and her ponytail was really limp. She had to go short. Her whole texture changed. Her skin became very cakey and crepey and wrinkly, and her nails became so dry and brittle and they started cracking. That happened after pregnancy because sometimes the hormone change is very drastic. I also want to add in that medications, drug use, eating disorders, malnutrition, those all affect nail growth, and they can cause a decrease in it. So, nail malformation. If disease, injury, or infection occurs in the matrix, the shape or thickness of the nail plate can change. Sometimes those conditions are the only reasons that a person will shed a nail. Healthy nails are not shed automatically or periodically the way that hair sheds. That's what actually would be kind of gross. Could you imagine that if our nails kind of shed like hair did randomly, or like teeth? Nail shedding is usually very serious, and that's a sign that something is very wrong. So, often after disease or injury or infection has affected the nail's growth, the nail will return to its healthy growth as long as the matrix is healthy or undamaged. Ordinarily, replacement of a natural fingernail takes about 4 to 6 months. Toenails about 9 months to 1 year to be fully replaced. And I know this firsthand because when I was a kid, I lost a toenail, and we always think it's like a family curse or something because I went 1 year. Actually, not even 1 year. It was more like 5 years in a row where I had repeated toe injuries, and my nails are actually a little bit different down there because of that. I had worn open-toed shoes, and what happened was, actually, we were at a funeral, and I remember I was rushing to get ready, and I just had to throw on flip-flops. Went to the funeral, and then after the funeral, I was at some kind of dinner reception after it. I had a leg of a table come down on my toenail, causing my whole toenail to start gushing out blood, and it was really scary. And half the nail was cracked. So when it grew out, I actually had half the nail that came off, and it wasn't painful because it was long dead, but it was bruised, and it hurt like hell for 3 months. As a kid, I lost a toenail, and then there was just a series of years where I kept whacking my toenail and stubbing it bad enough to cause a crack or tear the skin in front of it. And that was the hardest part. When you had a scab down there that came off, it felt so horrific. And I was like, ugh, like horror movie bad. I've known people that have also whacked a fingernail and have lost it, and I can't even look at it because I get like really squeamish with that. So that's something to be mindful of. Too, is that in very severe cases, someone may lose a toenail completely, never grow it back, as well as a fingernail. There's cases where the nail may be split, and we're going to learn all of that in the next chapter. So the last part, you want to make sure that you want to know your nails, because cosmetologists like the nails because of the creative opportunities, creating their own nails, making a little nail swatch. It's just so creative. You can have fun with the nail polish colors and designs. You want to have a full awareness with your creativity of the structure and function of the nails. You want to be able to work on strong, healthy nails, but a licensed cosmetologist, you're only allowed to work on healthy nails and skin with no visible sign of disease or infection. So just kind of know what a healthy nail should look like. And if a client comes in asking you these questions, make yourself familiar with how often the nail grows, 1/10 of an inch. And you also want to be honest. So if you know that a nail product is not going to do something, you want to be able to educate the client and explain that. You can even offer that some of your treatments can, help the nail get healthier, can condition the nail, but you don't want to ever overpromise them something that's not going to happen. And that's where it kind of gets to be painful in our field, because if someone's nail has not grown in 2 or 3 years, it's pretty much never going to grow back, and you kind of want to tell that to them in a nice way. But I always find it's better to refer them to a physician, because rather have the physician tell them that than you tell them that. So that's going to be it for the nails. I know it's kind of a dry chapter, but it's one of the quickest ones. And the next chapter, which I'm going to film tomorrow because I'm a little tired, is going to be nail disorders and diseases. It's going to be a really gross chapter. Some of the pictures in the textbook are a little scary, so be ready for that. So also do not eat anything either, because it's going to get kind of gross. And I will see you guys tomorrow, and we're going to talk about nail disorders and diseases.